Today on Locked On Red Wings, we go over the 3-2 loss against the Pittsburgh Penguins and why Dominic Kubalik is just poised to have a great season.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm the podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ news radio podcast, while Scotty's the host of Locked On Tigers and a freelance journalist of the Detroit News. And the Red Wings lost 3-2 today against the Pittsburgh Penguins in a game where they honestly dominated offensively, but I think that their defensive shortcomings really is what came back to bite them in the end.
Yeah. Yes. I also think that, like you said, the offense looked really good. There was just like a lot of missed opportunities, just not able to finish at the end. And I think that's, to me, probably the biggest.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think it's really a mix of those two things. I mean, we had, 3 breakaways? Raymond had 2. Vrana had 1. They shot it. Raymond shot wide on 1, right in the chest of Dish Smith on the other. Same with Vrana on his breakaway. They hit a post. Suter had a wide open net where he couldn't bury it. So there was a lot of missed opportunities. Smith looked really good.
Not even like, misfortunes or whatever. Just like, you have one-on-ones, or you get a good shot off in the slot or right in front of the net or something, and like inability to finish. That was really all where all the problems stemmed from offensively. And I think that's, for me, probably the biggest reason that on the losing end tonight.
Well, and you look at like expected goals for in this game. For F5-on-5 for the Penguins, it was just 1.73. Obviously, they got 2 of their goals on the power play because the Red Wings took bad penalties. That Vrana penalty especially was pretty egregious. And at first, Mickey Redmond talking about that Jacob Vrana penalty was like, oh, well, the player, I can't remember who hit Vrana at this point. The player who hit him caught him in a vulnerable position because he outstretched and was facing the boards. But on replay, and Mickey Redmond corrected himself, which is why I love our broadcasters, because they'll correct themselves when they are like, Vrana reached for it and was squared up shoulder to shoulder and got hit along the boards. Didn't like it, cross-checked the player down to the ice and drew a penalty, which immediately came down. Brian Rust, I believe, was the goal scorer on that one to put them up. And you can't take penalties like that. Again, it's preseason. It doesn't really matter. But this game today was the closest you're going to feel to a regular season game. Like, this was pretty much both the Red Wings and the Penguins A-teams in this game. I mean, save a couple of injuries like Andrew Kopp, but this was the lineup you're really going to see most nights. I mean, your top line was Bertuzzi, who played his first preseason game today, along with Larkin and Raymond. You had Perron with Vrana, yet, all the way down that lineup, and your pairings were all the same. The only thing missing was Kopp and Nedeljkovic, who just, played yesterday or Saturday, so they gave him the night off. So while, again, it's preseason, it doesn't really matter much, and I'm like, by no means am I doom posting. I'm probably being a little harsh right now, and I understand that. But these were the 2 A teams, and this felt like a actual regular season game. It was remarked upon several times in the broadcast that it felt like a regular season game. But the Red Wings just came up short in this one, despite the fact that they really dominated offensively. They just could not bury those chances. Whereas the Penguins, they got their opportunities and they took advantage of them. Husso played great, but their one even strength goal, they caught Husso cheating off the post a little bit.
Yeah, I actually thought Husso looked pretty good, to be honest.
I thought he did too.
They had the one, like you said, the one goal that he gave up was definitely one where, just not on his toes or whatever, just kind of snuck it by him there. And like you said, not hugging the post enough. But then, he had a couple of really nice saves, stuffed a 2-on-1 a couple of times. I thought he looked really good, and I didn't think the defense was porous or anything either. I thought it was a decent performance by the defense too. It's just they outshot the heck over the game for most of the game. Outshot the heck out of them and couldn't finish. And that's like what I keep going back to, because I think that's like blatantly the biggest thing that was kind of a theme last weekend or over the weekend as well. Like that we talked about, right? And was it the Chicago game where they had a ton of shots, and weren't able to.
Not until the third period they finally cracked.
Right, like it was 0-0 going into the third, and they were out shooting the heck out of them too. Like that's just been the reoccurring theme over the last couple of games is just inability to really finish, and that's why I really like the addition of Kubalik, and that's why I think that he's having some success because that dude's just gonna grip it and rip it. He's gonna get his. He's gonna like if you know you can't finish, you can't finish. That's a different thing, but like he's gonna get his shots off. That's for sure.
Oh, I mean, besides his goal, obviously, which was a nice play,
Yeah,
not enough is said by that assist by Valeno, I believe, on that goal. It was Sider to
Yeah.
Valeno. That was not a shot attempt
There was
by
a tip.
Valeno.
I
It
think
was
Bergeron
on
might have
net.
tipped it.
Was it Bergeron? I know
Well,
Sider got the
no, there
secondary.
was like Bergeron tried to redirect it, I think, and then it ended up being off the
I
pad
got
and whatnot.
this. I
Anyway,
got this.
not too important, but like it
It was
was a heck
Bergeron.
of a play. Yeah.
It was Bergen coming down the wing who took the shot, not Valeno. That was my bad. Bergen coming down the wing who received the tip pass from Sider. That wasn't a shot attempt by Bergen whatsoever. He saw Dominic Kubalik breaking down the back door with nobody covering him, and he sent that low off the goalie's pad intentionally, so it would come out to Kubalik. That's a very smart, high IQ play. And I mean, when you talk about highlights in this game, I thought, obviously, besides your top line, which I thought they looked really well, really good again, I think that Dominic Kubalik line with Joe Veleno and Jonathan Bergeron, rather, as I heard Ken Daniels pronounce it Jonathan, so that's what I'm going with from now on.
There you go. Yeah. That's all I need.
They looked good at times. I mean, if you look at their expected goals for percentage, relative at 5-on-5, they're a little bit down there, and that's because they're a really young line. So there were shifts where they looked good, shifts where they didn't, but I really like the chemistry that they've had. I mean, and when you substitute Dominic Kubalik with Cross Hannes, and a few times he's played, that looked good, really good too. I mean, that young line has the potential to be really lethal at the third line level. I think that could be a dominant third line in the NHL so far. I mean, that might be, maybe I'm getting too far ahead of myself and dominant, but I think it could be a very effective third line at the NHL level, especially with Dominic Kubalik on there, because like you said, he can really grip it and rip it. He had a slap shot one-timer early in the game that was just a rocket. And he's got 3 goals in the preseason. I know it's just a preseason, but I'm like looking at how he's playing, and I'm looking at how the Red Wings recognized his strengths and play into those strengths. And I could see him, maybe not, I'm not going to say 30 goals, but I could see him getting to 18, 19, maybe 20, which is better than he did the last 2 seasons with the Blackhawks. I think he fits a very specific and particular brand of hockey. Kind of like the Alex, not comparing him to Alex Ovechkin, but like how Alex Ovechkin has that spot in that left dot where he rips shots from. I think Dominic Kubalik can serve a same value for the Red Wings on a third line, where you get him in his spot and you just feed him. You just feed him pucks, and he's just going to rip it, and he's going to score. It's going to be like Mighty Ducks, maybe 1 in 5 shots, but hell, when that puck goes in, it's going to look beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm real. I mean, I've been saying since we signed him, right? I've been saying that he's been my favorite acquisition, maybe of the entire offseason. I think when it comes to that line, they definitely looked really good in this one, and seemed to be building some chemistry. I don't know if I'd go as far. That's not going to be the third line early. Like it's just not, because like Pew Suter's going to be 3C when Copp is back. So that's just it could down the road, and obviously injuries happen and stuff. And I'm sure they'll keep it in the memory bank and be like, you know what, this is something that worked in the preseason. Let's give it a shot. But yeah, I mean that, yeah, they looked really good, undeniably. So we'll see. I really, the thing I just keep going back to over and over in this game is just how many missed opportunities this team really had, and how many opportunities they did have, but just could not follow through with them. It was really, I don't want to use the word frustrating, because preseason game, I don't think I've ever watched a preseason game and been it
upset. Can still be. I was frustrated, and I think it's okay to feel frustrated. I know a game means nothing in the end, but I mean, it was still frustrating to see them have all those grade A opportunities. And I think it's more so justified to feel frustrated in this game, because these two teams very clearly were giving it at least 80% in this game.
Yeah.
That was a regular season. Those are 2 regular season squads going against each other.
Yeah, this was, like you said in the beginning, that was a great point, is This is easily the closest we have seen to what the lines are going to look like on opening night. Like
And like
very, very much the most like regular season ready lines we have seen all preseason. So
by
to
no
lose that
means,
game is kind of disheartening, but
by no means am I like thinking that the season's a bust because they lost a preseason game. I'm not trying to say
right.
that, but I'm
Yeah,
saying
no,
it's
for sure.
okay to be like a little disappointed that they played so well and came up short despite how well they played. When we come back to it, I do want to also talk about Joe Veleno. We talked a little bit about that line, but I want to put a little bit of focus on Joe Veleno. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about Built Bar Puffs. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite. Cookie dough chunk puffs have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks. And of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's good for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Of all the protein bars that I've tried and all the flavors of Built Bar that they've sent us. I mean, they just sent me a new package. Did you get that new package, by the way? Can I
Yeah,
flex
dude,
on
it's
you? Dang it, I
fire.
was hoping I wouldn't. But of all the flavors I've tried, I still stick with the cookie dough chunk puff as my favorite. Like,
Yeah,
there
it's
is
phenomenal.
legitimate cookie dough pieces in it, and the puff, I honestly think, in my personal belief, the regular Built Bar is good, but the puff Built Bar just to me is superior. At first,
They're good.
it took me a little bit while to warm up to it, but now that I like it, I'm like, okay, this is like the go-to. The
Did you see
marshmallow
they
texture is
gave
so
they
good.
they gave us some raspberry in that box? How do you say it?
Yeah, raspberry.
There you go.
I got into this argument with my roommates and my girlfriend about this. I'm like, the P is not silent.
It's
It's not
raspberry,
silent.
dude.
So it's
Grow up.
raspberry.
Grow
No,
up.
you grow up. Uh, no, you're the child. You're going to love new cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just need a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Dartcom? What is Dartcom? How do I do this every time? It's like one word I just mispronounce.
I don't know.
Built.com, guys.
You all
God,
kind of like how you mispronounce raspberry.
no, that's correct. Your Midwestern accent has you mispronouncing it.
Grow up, dude.
I'm elevated to a higher level
Grow
of
up, dude.
intelligence.
Yeah,
I
for
just
sure.
can't pronounce words.
For sure. Dartcom, definitely just a whole new
Dartcom.
level of intelligence.
Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. I wanted to talk about Joe Veleno because, especially in the first half of the game, I noticed it more. But he definitely seems to be playing with a higher level of confidence, a higher level of vision. He was making a lot of correct plays. At one point, he tried to deke Sidney Crosby, which did not work. But you know what? I respect the
I
cockiness, the
love it.
swagger that he
I
has
love it.
to attempt that. I mean, that was the big thing that we talked about a lot with Joe Veleno last year is he would go through phases where he looked good, and then he'd go through phases where it's like he doesn't deserve to be on the NHL ice. That
Well, and
game
our
last night,
two, like that was literally, you can go back and listen to those episodes. That was our biggest point every single game was confidence. That was
yeah,
literally the point where like he just doesn't look like he thinks he belongs on the NHL ice. And like
yeah,
you know what I mean? And like aggressiveness went into the offensive zone and all of that just completely lacked any of it. And then at the end of the season, for like a week, 2 weeks probably, we were like, oh my goodness, look, he actually looks pretty decent. And, not a lot of production points wise, but like he's a lot more aggressive and is at least getting a lot more creative and a lot more just sure of his own entries and stuff.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, he looked pretty dang good there. It's the first half of the
I
game.
thought so
Kind of
too.
lost track of him in the second half of the game as I was just like, oh my God, will they parry that puck in the back of the net? And they
Yeah.
finally did. And it was his line that did it first. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of highlight him real quick and you give a shout out to Valeno because he's looked pretty good all preseason. And it's going to be the Red Wings have a real good problem on their hands where they're going to have some tough roster decisions to make here in a week or so when they have to trim this roster down to the 18 to 20 players that they're going to carry into the regular season and decide who is going to make it because there's going to be tough roster cuts, especially as players get healthy. Once Sundqvist comes back, once Wallman comes back, once Pissick comes back, once Robert Haig comes back, once Robbie Fabry comes back. I mean, those are all players that are
we haven't even
NHL caliber
Andrew
players.
Kopp is like
Yeah.
literally like one of our best players now. Like Andrew Kopp is one of the highest paid players on the team, and he hasn't even been a factor into these lines yet.
So like it's a great problem to have, but it's like there's gonna be some hurt, like player wise. But even we're probably gonna be like, oh man, I wish he would have made the team, but I get it. I mean, that's gonna be the case most likely with Soderblom, because he didn't play tonight, and I feel like if he didn't play tonight, like this is probably, and he probably does need another season to mature in the North American leagues, and maybe Edvinson too. Although Edvinson did play tonight, and Lalone said
Soderblom also, they said he was a little before the game. They said he was a little banged up.
okay,
Not
so
like
that may
not
have
like
had a
even
factor.
remotely serious at all, but just like a little sore, like
needed a
night off was expected kind of thing.
So yeah, I mean it's interesting to see, and it's going to be tough down the line, but it's an absolutely great problem to have where you don't know who is going to make the team or not. I mean, outside of your top
Much
6
rather
and top
have
2
that
pairings,
than the opposite, which is what we've done for the last 4 years. So,
speaking of people who could get cut, man, Lindstrom didn't look good today.
I thought you were literally going to say speaking of people, and that was your transition, and I was like, wow, that's creative, dude.
I'm smart, dude. Smart.
Yeah, no, Lindstrom. Yeah, I didn't think he looked very good either. I thought there was a lot. I guess just like transitioning to the defense as a whole, I didn't think the unit played that poorly. I do agree with you that Lindstrom really struggled. I think it was just overall, I mean, like poor spacing was like really a big thing with him. And just, I don't know, offensively, he's always just kind of been a net neutral at best,
Yeah, he
like
doesn't really provide a lot of pop.
Defender. So like that, you're not really putting him in the game for that. I don't know. Like I just, he didn't really seem too effective in this one. I do want to talk about Edvinson though.
Yeah, his defensive partner.
Yeah, and I thought that in the first period, I really thought that Edvinson looked also like pretty. I don't want to say lost. I think that's too dramatic, but he did not look very sharp. I thought there was really poor spacing for him as well, especially on like fast breaks and such in the first period. I don't know. Like it was not very good. Positioning was really kind of whack at times. Not overbiting. It was the opposite. It was like too timid of spacing and positioning. Like when the Penguins were in our zone, I really didn't think that it was a very good first period. And then the second and third period, I thought he was fantastic. And I thought that the positioning and the spacing was fine. I thought it was great. Sometimes you're just off or you just make a couple of plays wrong and it's highlighted. Then you turn around, you play the rest right. And I think that's what happened. I thought in the second and third, he was really good. He broke up a couple of passes, which I thought was really impressive just with his stick, right? Like
Carried
that
up
was
the
really
puck.
nice to see. I thought he was the perfect amount of aggressive. I don't know if that's like a right way to word that.
No, that's right.
I thought that he was finishing hits that he should have finished. He was closing out space that he should be closing out. I don't think he made too many mistakes in the second or third period. I really liked what I saw out of him after the first, which is kind of almost the opposite of how I feel about a lot of other people in this one. So,
no, I mean, I would agree with you. I mean, if you look at 5-on-5 expected goals for percentage and relative, he and Lindstrom are the worst in the team in this game.
yeah.
Lindstrom had a couple of really egregious turnovers, and dude, not that the defensive core outside the top 4 is all that deep, but there's a lot of guys on contract. And Lindstrom, I'm just not super confident I think he could get placed on waivers because he's just not playing all that well. And Robert Haig was playing pretty good up until the point where he got injured in the red and white game. At least, obviously at training camp, he was just standing out. And I mean, just you got Osterley in there as well. And I'm not 100% confident Simon Edvinson is going to make the team. I think he could go either way. And because
I think one of those decisions kind of influences the other.
It does. One's going to stay, one's going to go. And I don't know which one's going to stay and which one's going to go at this point. I think Edvinson could definitely benefit from some time in Grand Rapids because of, like you said, there are moments where you can see that he's a little bit inexperienced. He hasn't never played on the North American ice. People forget, but Sider played about 50 games at the Grand Rapids Griffins before COVID. And then he got a whole nother season in the SHL after that. So he had a North American experience and a full season at the SHL level. So, Moritz Seider came into the NHL with an extra year of experience at the North American level before coming to the NHL. I mean, Simon Edvinson looks like he may need that. Not saying he couldn't hold his own at the NHL level, but like if you want him to be ready when you call him up, I think some AHL time could benefit him. But at the same time, I don't think Lindstrom's really deserving of a spot right now with how he's playing in the preseason. I think he's underperforming based on what we've seen from him. What he's capable of, at least at the NHL level last season. We've seen it both ways, where some games he looks like a pretty good, solid 50-50 split defenseman, offensively, defensively. He doesn't bring a whole lot offensively, but he wasn't like a net negative. So it's going to be an interesting decision, especially with guys coming back healthy. Pisic's out indefinitely with his Achilles issue, but like I said, you got Osterley and you got Haig as well that are there trying to compete.
Yeah, no, you keep pointing to the, we'll call it depth, but there's, a difference between depth and just having a lot of bodies. Yeah. And I think that's kind of where the line in the sand is drawn between the forwards and the blue line is just the blue line. You're going to have to make some decisions defensively, and you're going to really, it just comes down to Edvinson. Like, that's really the only big decision from the defenseman is like, do you want Edvinson to start off this season in the NHL, or do you want him to start off in Grand Rapids? That decision will have a ripple effect and influence directly every other fringe defenseman, whether they make the roster or not. And
yeah, absolutely,
with the forwards, you are actually more so going on, okay, this person has looked good in the preseason. We really like what they have to offer. This works better with a scheme, et cetera, et cetera. You're actually going on what their production is going to be. Whereas it almost seems like with the defenseman, it's really just, okay, well, if Edvinson doesn't make the team, then you'll probably make the team. And if Edvinson makes the team, then you probably won't. Like,
can we also talk about how, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that was the end of my thought. It's just I think that is the difference between good depth and just,
a little Javi Baez home run, eh?
Yeah, Oppo Taco there.
There you go.
I'm watching the Tiger game.
Yeah, I know you are. As they play it on the West Coast. Is this to end the season?
Yes, 4 games left,
Great.
and 2 of them are tomorrow. So we got
weird.
Yeah. Today as you're listening to this.
What I was gonna say before I saw the Javi Baez home run is that I think did we correctly pick the defensive pairings like all the way through? Like we were like Sherratt, Seider, Mata, Hronek, Lindstrom, Edvinson. I know like there was some
for this
speculation.
Game, yeah.
Well, like just in general, I know there was some speculation amongst us that Edvinson may play on the second pair, but like for the most part, we were like pretty down to the what like that. Like
yeah, we're like that. So
I just want to pat myself on the back a little bit. There.
Yeah,
we're pretty
like
good
that.
on that one.
Believe it, believe that we're like it. But no, I also, that was another thing I actually want to bring up was Sherratt, man. I thought he looked pretty solid, and also I am blown away by how effortlessly strong of a human being he is. He throws people, and it's something that, again, we've said it a million times, but if utilized correctly, I think could pair really well with Seider.
Well, let's talk about that in segment 3, along with the other defensive pairing, because I thought they were sneaky good in this game. I don't think a lot of people, because they didn't really stand out in terms of like they didn't do anything really amazing, but they didn't do anything really bad. But they were sneaky good in this game, and Ole Mata and Filip Hronek. So we'll talk about that and goaltending and special teams in segment 3 when we come back. Segment 3, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. You began talking about it there, Scotty, but yeah, that Sherratt Seider pairing, I like it a lot. One thing with Seider, and you said about Sherratt, but it's also true with Seider, how effortlessly strong they are. They both just knock guys down with so much ease. And that's something that we talked about, was like something we could look forward to with that pairing as he's strong.
It's crazy, bro. Like he had the one that Mick freaked out about. He just like touched him and he ragdolled and flew across the ice, and Mick was like, "Oh my goodness." Yeah.
No, it's true. And then Moritz Seider also has like added this new element of the game to his game where he just jumps and catches pucks out of the air and plays them to his
Dude.
stick.
Yeah,
He did it
that's gonna
twice.
go viral, deservingly so. That was insane. That was
Well, obviously there's the
he's
one where he
not
like
human.
leapt really high in the air and caught it. But there was another one earlier in the game where a player tried to chip the puck in past him and he just grabbed it out of the air, played it to a stick, and shot it down the ice for a pass that led to a 2-on-1. And like that one stood out to me as more impressive because how seamlessly he did it, as if like he saw everything instantaneously and made the play happen. The other one, he like obviously he was more flamboyant because he jumped up into the air like 3 feet and caught it and fell to the ground to bring it down. But
That 40-inch vert, baby. He
yeah,
can dunk. He can dunk on skates.
it was fun. I mean, Seider just looks like he's game ready. He looks just like we were talking about with Raymond yesterday. And Raymond looked good again today. We haven't really talked about the first line and the fact that this is Bertuzzi's
Raymond looked good.
first preseason game. That line looked really
Again,
good.
like got a few really good scoring opportunities
Two
and wasn't
break
able to
breaks.
do anything with them. Yeah, two for sure.
But then
But looked good. I mean, besides that, looked great. Yeah.
Well, then Bertuzzi got the assist on Larkin's goal, and he did this several times last year, and it's very deceptive. Where it looks like he's about to skate behind the net, and then passes it behind his back out front, short side, where the goalie's starting to cheat, and Larkin was able to score top shelf far side. And I mean, Bertuzzi came back and he immediately added, that same element that we knew last year on the only line that was successful all year long in that top line. I mean, I mentioned it, I tweeted about it, but there was a point in the second period where they're passing. I called it blind chemistry because it was as if they didn't even know where each other were, like physically didn't see them, but they knew that's where they were going to be. And it was just blind passes back and forth in the offensive zone. They looked really strong in the offensive zone. And I mean, that's just something to look forward to with them. But
Can we do special teams? Just
absolutely,
because
do special
the only
teams.
really big thing I
It was
want to bring
bad.
up is just the fact that Edvinson got a look on the PK, and I think that's something we shouldn't overlook, just in the sense of they are trying. This is a
Yeah,
tryout.
give him
This is
looks.
literally a tryout for him, and they're gonna put him in a lot of high pressure situation as you can get in the preseason to see how he's going to react and play in those situations. And I didn't think I thought he looked pretty solid in the penalty kill, at least. Again, didn't think he looked very good in the first period really at all, but
He
rest of
got
the
better.
game. And I thought in the couple of PK opportunities he had, he looked decent.
Yeah, I wasn't really impressed with either special teams. The power play didn't do much of anything, really failed to establish a zone presence anytime they got onto a power play. And then penalty kill let up 2 goals against, which is just not good. There were moments
Correct.
in this game where I thought they looked like last year's Red Wings. I mean, there was a lot of good to focus on in this team, but their offense wise, they produced a lot more offense than we have seen last year, and that's been consistent this game and the last game. But I did see a lot of dump and chasing, which I didn't like. And then obviously their special teams was really bad in this game. And I thought defensively in the defensive zone, I saw a lot of scrambling. Now, I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins are the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they have a phenomenal team. And whenever Evgeny Malkin or Sidney Crosby or Brian Rust are on the ice, I mean, they're hard to play against in the defensive zone. I do think they scrambled quite a bit, but like you said, in the end, there were very few scoring chances at even strength. I think while they may have been scrambling, they kept them to the outside and helped keep scoring chances low. There were a few good scoring chances the Penguins had, but they helped keep scoring chances low. They just struggled to get possession of the puck in the defensive zone. And that leads me to my point where Oli Mata and Philip Hronek, expected goals for percentage wise, I mean, were the best players on the team in this game at 5-on-5. They were out there and they were effective at preventing the other team from getting quality scoring chances. Like I said, I think the Penguins held pretty good possession in the offensive zone, but they really failed to get good scoring chances. And I think Hronek and Mata made a pretty good duo out there in this game. In fact, at 5-on-5, their expected goals for was 1.18 and 1.11 respectively. That means that team, when they were on the ice, should have had a goal, more than a goal, because of their influence, which is really good. I mean, they played really well on both sides of the ice in this game, but it wasn't like jumping up 30 feet in the air or crushing bodies along the boards good. It was just they played their game well. They played safe hockey. I think there was one play where I thought Philip Hronek kind of got made to look silly, but I mean, it didn't negatively affect the team in the end. So I liked it. I liked that pair today.
I really like that pair, period.
Yeah.
I love it. I think that should be second pair, and I'm very confident in it. And I like it a lot. I think it's a huge improvement from last year's any line, really. To be honest with you, like it was Moritz Sider, and that was kind of it last season. So yeah, I absolutely love it. I'm very, very sold on our top four defensively. Very sold. And I think that the third pair is really the only question mark left as we
Yeah.
keep talking about.
Well, and I thought goaltending was. I thought Ville Husso played well, save the where he got caught cheating off the post a little bit. That was a bad goal. He should have been on his post, but
For
he let
sure.
up two shorthanded goals. That's not really on him. I don't want to blame a shorthanded goal on him when the team's down a man. I thought he made he made one really, really nice save, but then Ulki Nora came in the third and he shut it down. He didn't let in a single goal. So I like both of them. I think Ville Husso is going to be a really nice addition. It took me a while to get used to seeing him in 35, though. I'm not going to lie, because I'm so used to that being Howard's number. That's
Did you
so
hear
weird to
about
me.
Howard?
Yeah, that was announced like last week.
Yeah,
That
I
he's
know,
on
but
the
I just thought it was cool. They had like the whole thing on the
yeah.
like on Bally. They had like the whole, in between. I think it was first one of the intermissions. They did like the whole thing on it. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. Happy that he's continuing his post playing
A
career. They
lot
had him on a
of
few
very
times.
pro goalie broadcast that he turned
Yes,
it
with Chris
into.
Osgood.
I like it.
And then this is just so there's two other things. One, it seems like the letters on above the wing are going to be a permanent thing again, from what I'm understanding. That is going to be back where it's at. It's going to be back above the tip of the wing, which I have mixed feelings about. Um, I get that it's because that is where the team had success, is when it was about like that's his iconic look, but also it just looks so crowded and cluttered right there. Whereas like you put it up to the other side just because there was more space. I don't really care in the end if they move it back to that side because that's the iconic look. I care in the end if they move it back to that side because it adds. But I've gotten up on my soapbox about that before, so I won't do it again today. So but it appears that's where it's gonna stay, is right there
I
above the
love
wing.
it.
It's an iconic look, and I don't mind if
I
that
love
goes
it.
back there. Like I said, I do think it's a little cluttered, and I kind of like the fact they moved it back over. They moved it to the other side because of the fact that you had all that space there. But I also understand the iconism. I'm making up a word here.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
I'm not a writer, so
You just say the iconic look that is. Yeah, you
yeah.
don't have to make up a word.
But then the other thing is,
Oh my gosh.
I got the Bally. Something probably happened to the Tigers game. I got the Bally Sports Plus app, right? Because I don't have cable. And there were two times in the game where the audio lagged and slowed down, but the video didn't. And it kept slowing down longer and longer and made people sound like this. And it was so freaky. And it's just a troubleshooting problem, I'm assuming, with the new app. But I was like, what is happening? I was like, am I having a bad trip? Like, what's going on? Like, what the hell?
Ridiculous. I can't believe this just happened in the Tigers game. I'm so sorry.
What happened?
Ball just dropped between three people.
You can't believe that happened to this Tigers team.
This team, man. 3 days.
And then he's free. Any final thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's preseason.
I mean, I think we hit all the beats, right? Like we didn't miss anything. We talked about
We
talked
had
about
everything we want to talk about. I want to keep reiterating, it's the preseason, and they're going to try some stuff, and some stuff's not going to work, and some stuff is, and yeah, I'm just really pumped.
Yeah, I mean, we are now over halfway down the preseason. The Red Wings play again tomorrow against the Washington Capitals in Washington. Don't know how I'm going to be able to watch that game yet because it's not on Bally, and then they don't play again until Friday. And I think they finish up the preseason that weekend, is because then we have like 4 or 5 days straight until the home opener,
Yeah, I think
which
the 8th.
all the home games are at 7:00 now. Let's go. I love that for us.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And getting to bed a half an hour earlier every night. Let's go. We'll be back tomorrow with another game recap. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.